United States right now, there are 3 million children receiving stimulant medications for ADHD. And there are about 500,000 kids in this country receiving heavy-duty antipsychotic medications. Medications such as are usually given to adult schizophrenics to regulate their hallucinations. But in this case, children are getting it to control their behaviors. So what we have is a massive social experiment of the chemical control of children's behavior with no idea of the long-term consequences of these heavy-duty antipsychotics on kids. Within the last 5 years, there's been a 43% increase in the rate of dispensing of stimulant prescriptions for ADD or ADHD. In other words, what we're seeing is an unprecedented burgeoning of the diagnosis. And I should say, really, I'm talking about, more broadly speaking, what I would call the destruction of American childhood. Nearly half of American adolescents now meet some criteria for mental health disorders. So we're talking about a massive impact on our children of something in our culture that's just not being recognized. And children are being diagnosed with all kinds of things. ADD is just one example. There's a new diagnosis called oppositional defiant disorder, which again has to do with behaviors and poor impulse control. So that impulse control now has become a problem amongst children in general, not just the specific ones diagnosed with ADD. The conditions in which children develop have been so corrupted and troubled over the last several decades that the template for normal brain development is no longer present. For many, many kids, the conditions for child development that hunter-gatherer societies provided for their children, which are the optimal conditions for development, are no longer present for our kids. The way we raise our children today in this country is increasingly depriving them of the practices that lead to well-being in a moral sense. The issue of ADD is only a small part of the general issue that children are no longer having the support for the way they need to develop. You see, again, if you look at the school boards, and bullying has become a problem, there's hardly a school board in North America that doesn't have zero tolerance policies. Meaning, these kids who bully are then, once identified as bullies, they're excluded and they're punished, which is a typical North American behavioral response. And again, what they're ignoring is the causes of the bullying problem. The bully is just a kid who is emotionally very immature, has a desperate need to belong, and the way he attempts to do so is by exploiting somebody else's vulnerability. What you're talking about, again, is the lack of healthy conditions for childhood development. The essential condition for the physiological development of these brain circuits that regulate human behavior, that give us empathy, that give us a social sense, that give us a connection with other people, that gives us a connection with ourselves, that allows us to mature. The essential condition for those circuits, for their physiological development, is the presence of emotionally available, consistently available, non-stressed, attuned parenting caregivers. What we have to understand here is that human beings are not discrete individual entities, contrary to the free enterprise myth that people are competitive, individualistic, private entities. But people actually are social creatures, very much dependent on one another, and very much programmed to cooperate with one another when the circumstances are right. The child's brain development depends on the presence of non-stressed, emotionally available parents. In this country, that's less and less available.